Now, the next person we have up is Andrea Perkins. She's the VP of Digital Enablement at Insight. She's also a WIC advisor. She's on the advisory board. She's got a proven track record of streamlining process and procedures. She's known for her commitment and leadership in developing alliances with stakeholders, executives, and teams. And she's going to lead our CXO panel, ESG&T, as ESG issue, risk, and value influencer. Please help me welcome Andrea Perkins, and she'll introduce her panel. Hi, Andrea.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. And what was the biggest highlight in your career, surprise for you?
Oh, biggest surprise is probably being here. I'm literally starstruck every time I get to be a part of these. And today is literally no exception. Just so many takeaways. I can't wait to see what this board looks like as we get through it. And so thank you so much. I'm so excited for our panel we have ahead here.
All right, here we go. I'll turn it over to you. Have a great.
Thank you so much. All right. So, so whether you're a policymaker, an entrepreneur, or a professional, every one of us and our businesses are deeply intertwined with ESG concerns. So in today's panel discussion, we're going to focus on ESG plus technology. So technology as a risk, as an issue, and what technology opportunities we have to be a value influencer. So to lead that discussion today, we have two CXO trailblazers who definitely contribute to my starstruck comment, who are changing the world every day through ESG. So please join me in welcoming Colleen O'Brien and Heba Ramsey to the stage.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Hi, Colleen.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing great. And hopefully we have Heba coming on too.
Hello, Andrea.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, I could never do justice to everything you all do. So if you could kick us off with some background information and really your role as it relates to ESG today. Colleen, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Heba, it's an honor to share the stage with you. And Andy, thanks so much for the warm welcome. So hello, everyone. My name is Colleen O'Brien. I am the Chief Communications Officer at Armoire. We are an early stage clothing rental startup headquartered in Seattle, Washington. And as is the case with many startups, I wear multiple hats, even under that title. So of course, please consider that our initiatives aren't necessarily the size of a large corporation, but some of the ways that ESG intersects with my day-to-day, I'm happy to outline now. So on the environmental side, I'm managing our sustainability initiatives and tracking our progress. We're making some great progress year over year. I'm excited to share a little bit more about that later in the conversation. Part of that work is actually work with a local nonprofit, Dress for Success. So there's some social good overlap in that environmental initiative as well. On the social side, I manage our employee engagement survey and employer branding to ensure that we're attracting and retaining really great, diverse and inclusive talent. And then regarding governance, I am a major contributor to our investor relations work stream. So I make sure that those governing our business are kept up to speed on our progress. And Heba, I will hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Colleen, and thanks, Andrea. It's great to be with all of you today, and like I feel privileged to be on such an esteemed panel, sharing the stage with great leaders. So my name is Heba Ramsey, and I lead citizenship here in Avanade. A little bit about the company for those who don't know about it. Avanade is a purpose-driven, people-first organization with a purpose to make a genuine human impact. Our vision is to advance the world through the power of our people and Microsoft. Kind of established 20 years, a little bit over 20 years ago as a joint venture by Accenture and Microsoft. And we are kind of like uniquely positioned as a global leader across the Microsoft ecosystem. We're present in a number of countries with our 60,000 people to bring industry insights and an expertise and breadth of services to do what matter for our client, our people, and in the communities where we kind of live and work. So citizenship sits at the heart of all that, and and it enable us to do good, in the societies and drive impact with young people, underserved communities, and do good in the environment. So what's my role, in connection with ESG? With all that, I mean, last year, we, as a company, we started our journey as a responsible business to set up the framework for ESG. So I led this effort with my colleague Miranda Hill, who leads innovation. And we started to put the framework around ESG, for the entire company, and we're very proud that we launched it last FY. I do drive a lot of engagement, in programs to realize these KPIs and that framework around environment, especially the work that we are doing in the community and our commitment, the social impact. And as I mentioned, I mean, it's part of what I do day in, day out. And we've got a number of key initiatives to support and enable, BIPOC entrepreneurs, young people, to realize their potential. On the governance part, in addition to engaging with all the senior leaders and get the buy-in and make it their commitment, we also look into third parties, and get the accreditation and really use them as benchmarks to continue enhance the work that we are doing. And kind of I can share a little bit more in details if you are interested. But Andrea, back to you.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, certainly a ton of what you all are doing today from an impact perspective. And I feel like you don't really fall into these types of roles. And so, I'm curious, sort of as an icebreaker, if you will, what was your moment in your life, or did you decide or maybe realize, find your calling that you wanted to contribute to global goals?
Yeah, Andy, I'm happy to start on that. So I got my first job in technology about 10 years ago, and I was really surprised to see the incredible scope of my role, the types of opportunities that I was getting access to, and quite frankly, like the number of the dollar sign number on my paycheck every 2 weeks. It became so clear to me that technology and access to jobs in technology was a huge lever in creating wealth, and could be an incredible equalizer. Just as education was, something that had fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life, I quickly saw access to technology, education, and opportunities to work at technology companies could fundamentally change someone's life. And even just 10 years ago, several technology corporations hadn't yet made the commitment to inclusive hiring that they had today. So as I looked around the office workspaces that I was in, women were absolutely in the minority. People of color were in the minority. Queer individuals were in the minority. And I realized not everyone has access to this lever that can change their lives. So I started doing some deep dives on what are the hiring practices in technology, looking to thought leaders for how did we get to this state where only some people have access to this magical lever? And I got involved with WIC as well, learning about their job access creation, learning about how they were putting women entrepreneurs in touch with great corporations, and learning more about the UN 17 global goals as well. And while there are many that have intersected with my work over time, gender equality has been a North Star for me. How do I create more access to the life-changing opportunities that working in technology has provided to me and make those opportunities available to more people? So that is the root of my inspiration and why the UN global goals are so important to me.
Wow,
It's kind
thank
of,
you.
I can echo everything that Colleen said. I mean, it's just amazing. And as Kim Fossman just shared with us, this is not a new thing. And to me, a pivotal moment was, like 2 decades ago, in exactly 2000, in the year 2000, where we found the world starting to collaborate and contribute to these issues. I mean, like what we know as the development goals, because they are all relevant to everybody, wherever you live. Every organization, no matter how large and small you are, and what industry or nation, large and small, developed and emerging, just kind of like, some key points around that particular year where we launched the Millennium Development Goals. I mean, this was the first, like the first charter to the international organization in the UN had, had announced to address the world pressing issues around, I mean, what you mentioned, Colleen, around inclusion, diversity, education, healthcare, environment, sustainability. Which then evolved into what we know about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. They continue to expand, and they called upon, like everybody to contribute, the government to be accountable for that. And, like again, in 2000, the UN Global Compact was also launched with the hope to push corporations, to push the private sector to get more involved. So it's no longer the governments who would take the lead, but we want everybody to participate. And, and then we got all very challenged by Kofi Annan, like back in 2004, when, he challenged the world investors and the private sector to actively, play the role towards realizing these goals. And where the measures and putting some benchmarks and the ESG, started forming, and, and we all know it as such. Again, why 2000? Because that moment, but I also, I mean, I kind of like, I think I mentioned, or I did not mention that, but I grew up in Egypt, an emerging market country, where we've seen the gap starting growing, like within the country and between, like in the country and, and the developed world, I would say. And we saw that by focusing on the SDGs, we'll be able to advance progress, like in different areas around education and access to education and education for all, around enabling small businesses, like and growing the wealth and growing engines to economies, and like around healthcare. And all that we can leverage the technology. And that was kind of where we started to pivot all our efforts and bring technology as a cutting cross and as an enabler to help us, like advance and, I would say, reduce the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and use this as a, like as a conduit to be able to advance the economies and create more opportunities for small businesses, more healthcare for the have-nots, and even enhance healthcare for the haves, improve on, like the climate change, and make it the agenda of everybody. So that's kind of where I started, like being excited and focus a lot of energy to be able to contribute, like to that agenda.
And I mean, you talk about the push and the energy behind it now, and the challenge that we all as businesses and all corporations have at this moment. But what are some of the current risks and trends that you're seeing the world is grappling with that are facing the world today, and could be some setbacks and challenges for us? Heba, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. And like with every new thing, there are risks. I mean, and we're seeing few things that are happening. And let me shed the light on few of them. I think the first is that, like the kind of the goals that we all rally behind are well defined under the Sustainable Development Goals. So we all agree that these are the 17 goals, are great goals that we want all to rally behind in different forms and shape, like, based on our capacities and our, like our focus and role that we are playing. So they cover everything from gender, like education, healthcare, innovation, environmental sustainability, justice and economic prosperity, and all will happen with the, like under an umbrella of public-private partnership. So we all have to work together into that. However, I mean, like if we look into that, I think we're seeing few trends and few challenges here. Is that, like what is the definition of ESG? Like, and we're seeing companies start focusing on targets rather than programs to achieve the targets. So we define the KPIs, but like, what are the programs that will help us achieve the targets? We also are seeing more focus on reporting on progress rather than the impact. So this is one issue that I want to, I want to raise. We're also seeing some confusion around some of the terminologies, like, ESG, sustainability, responsible business. So there is a little bit of confusion around that, depending on what sector and what have you. Some of the definitions, I mean, like also we're seeing some confusion around the definition and what does it mean to us. So nonprofit and social entrepreneurs want to use it as a tool to contribute towards the SDGs. Investors want consistently to focus on the measures to evaluate financial decisions and, like, and name the risks. And business leaders want not to incur higher costs. So that led to some polarization around the discussions. At UN, you see UN pushing the agenda. They want everybody to rally behind the SDGs and contribute to that. Politicians are putting regulations because, like, again, towards the common goal. And, like, nonprofits are looking into the private sector and say, like, okay, the greenwashing, you're only talking about reports. And, like, and we've heard it, like, a couple of weeks ago at the UNGA that, like, some of the billionaires like Elon Musk call it a scam, and raising a lot of confusion and questions around that. And that leave small businesses, a number of organizations, consumers increasingly confused. This truly impacts the progress of all what we want to do, or everybody in that call, like in all businesses, they want to achieve. It hinders the collaboration because we just kind of, get into this whole rabbit hole and delays, like all our efforts and put some critical initiatives on hold. So that is, I mean, these are some of the issues that we are seeing. However, we're seeing also at the same time, we're seeing a great momentum. You've got, like the Fortune 500 and I think the Fortune 1000, they all are focusing on driving ESG and reporting on it and working towards, like towards realizing that and talking about it. We're seeing companies, small and large, like having clear ESG targets. I think we just kind of like, we need to clear the water. We need to kind of, like push away the noise so we can focus on, like moving forward and contributing together to, like towards the targets. So that's kind of like, what we're seeing there. But I don't want to leave you with a gloomy picture. I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of organizations are moving forward. A lot of large, mid-sized, small organizations are driving that. A lot of individuals are very passionate about it, and they genuinely, driving the agenda forward.
Yeah, and I
Haba,
think
I just want to quickly respond to something you mentioned. Particularly working in marketing and communications, it is really attractive to have a great report on diversity and inclusion, or like a flashy sustainability report that you can release around Earth Day. And it's been so important in my role to like walk that line between what is the story that we want to tell, and like what is the truth behind that story? What are the actual programs that we're committing to? What are the goals that we're setting? Like, how do we get a little bit more rigorous around the work instead of the storytelling?
Yeah, and I know, as we talk about focus on the impact and the things we're doing, I think, you had mentioned, Heba, you didn't want to get into the doom and gloom. So second half here is definitely going to be, as we talk about solutions and the value that we can bring with ESG plus T. So I think I know someone who would absolutely love to be a part of this conversation. So please join me in welcoming back to the stage a woman who needs no introduction with this crew, Chaitra. So Chaitra, if you want to join us for some of the solutioning and value part.
Thanks, Andrea. So nice to have you. Your energy is infectious. And thanks, Heba, for bringing me to this discussion.
Thanks for joining us. All right, so what makes you think ESG plus technology can become one of the solutions for companies to achieve our corporate and global goals? Chaitra, you joined us. I know that you're dying to jump in.
Yeah, Heba talked about, right, the UN direction on making sure the world focuses on those 17 goals, the politician focusing on the regulation. The people who make magic happen is for the planet, the people, and then the profit to make sure you can keep the company sustainable. Those things are important. At the end of the day, you have to focus on supporting the people. You need to focus on supporting the planet and the profit. Right now, the CEOs are focusing on two things. One is it's a purpose-driven. Consumers are evolving because they are the millennials. And I learned about them reading the book, The Fourth Turning by Neil Howie. I would recommend all of you to look into it. It's when the generations are moving over the 80 to 100 years, the new landscape is also changing. So the landscape is changing by the millennials. So they are like a purpose-driven consumers. And with COVID came is the belief-driven hybrid workforce. So those two things are putting a lot of pressure on the CEO. So to achieve those goals, technology is the equalizer, the optimizer, the value innovator. So we are seeing a lot of the tech migration, the data transparency, workflow automation, so they could leverage AI and cloud and metaverse so to really drive the sustainability narrative so they can achieve the profit and still really serve the purpose-driven consumers and a belief-driven hybrid workforce. That's the trend we are seeing, and a trend that I'm seeing consistently, even in every small, medium, large companies.
And Colleen, do you have anything to add to that from certainly the value perspective here?
Yeah, absolutely. And lending a bit of a startup perspective, I know that we're very early on in our ESG strategy, but we also think about this as core to achieving our goals from a top line growth perspective. Like, we know that many people are opting for products that have a great sustainability story, that have a great social good story. They're looking to make those sustainable swaps, or they want a calling card when they're in a place and they're getting complimented on something, whether it's something that they're wearing. They want to tell like a great story about like, oh, here's where I found it. Here's who it's supporting. Here's who it's made by. But we are also seeing a little bit of bifurcation between customer sentiment and customer behavior. So especially over the past several years, I think there's been this growing awareness of the power of our individual consumer dollars and how we're spending them. We want to be intentional and support brands that are locally made or women-owned, BIPOC-owned. Similarly, corporations are making big pledges about how they're going to spend their supplier dollars or their procurement dollars. But convenience and immediacy can really threaten all of this goodwill. I have fallen victim to this in the past, needing something today, tomorrow, versus taking the time and energy to put into sourcing it through a values aligned brand, company, maker, etc. So especially in the retail industry, we see this with the rise of fast fashion and people looking for quick trends versus sustainable garments that they're really proud to wear. So just a little bit of bifurcation risk that we see in the market right now. And then the last note that I'll end on, another way that ESG is really contributing to our goals as a company, it's a major contributor to productivity. We know that our employees are more motivated to work at a company that they're proud to tell the story about. And also we're able, when we tell that story proactively through our employer branding, we're attracting great talent who want to affiliate with that goodwill. So top line growth and employee productivity are the two main points for us here.
Oh, absolutely. You want to, I mean, when you know you're making a difference and changing the world and you have a purpose, you're going to be there doing it every day because you're making a difference. So, so Heba, as we look at technology as a value enabler for ESG, how are you seeing that in your role today, and what are some key areas you're seeing that the opportunities for technology to enable the ESG goals?
Sure. Thank you. Just kind of like, I completely agree with what Kshetra and Colleen had said. And just building on that, with technology is an enabler, which can help us to, report on what, the progress that we are doing, help us to collect the data, analyze it, enhance the programs that we are driving. So that is one aspect of it. But the other aspect around it is to use it to even create innovation, and also advance the agenda, that we set forward. So if we get to look into visualize the framework, and I think we all talked about it around the environment, around the social, and around the governance, and then start developing the programs there, highlighting based on your focus, highlighting what what we are going to do, what is the commitment that we are making to combat environment issues, and the journey towards the net neutral, carbon neutral. This is kind of how can technology help with that? And we are seeing a lot of commitment from a number of companies that technology can help in reducing the carbon by moving to the cloud. And we've heard Microsoft speaking about that, and how this will have more efficiency, energy efficiency, and and their carbon neutral journey. The social aspects, and diversity and inclusion is very important. And to be honest, how can we work towards being able to collectively use technology to identify different suppliers and be more inclusive in in the supplier ecosystem, be more more enabled to drive impact in our societies, come up with solutions that will help help us and help you as a company and as a leaders to realize your own your own ESG targets, as well as contribute to to the consumer, and to your beneficiaries in doing that. And then we talked about compliance and the importance of data transparency, and that's all very important. I think it is a tool, an enabler, but also use it as technology to innovate and move forward. It is very, very important. To be honest, I mean, and I'll share with you kind of some examples and some stories here. We've heard Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft is a large company. They announced last year they're carbon negative and water negative by 2030. It's a company that is leading the chart there. That will, by doing so, it will help do good, and also, it will impact the work that their customers are doing, as well as engage their employees, to also achieve that. For us in Avanade, and we understand that we are living in extraordinarily challenging and, threatened, and issues that might threaten our future. I mean, like kind of what's happening around us. But we felt that we need to address that by becoming more responsible in every way that we treat the environment, the resources, and our people. That's why we made that commitment, in everything that we do, through our purpose to make a genuine human impact, do what matters, and be a forward, a forward-looking leadership and sustainability. And we developed our ESG scorecard last year, as I mentioned, but we didn't stop there. So we continue to enhance it. And this year we have, evolved our ESG scorecard to be able to continue, enhance and contribute to, to the goals and our aspirations. We started small, and this is an advice, it's kind of a learning from us to all of you. We started small. We start focusing on what we know best and what we can contribute, get the ball rolling, and then we evolve it. And we'll continue to evolve and enhance, get the support from the leadership, make it their commitment, as to realize the, to realize our goals and aspirations, make it the commitment of the board as well. So collectively, we'll be able to move forward. I think collectively, we'll be able to also attract the talent, because they, as we've heard from Colleen and Shiatra, all the talent, all the graduates, all the students that I personally engage with are looking to join companies with a purpose, companies that are doing good. So that can be one of the tools. And you can only do that by using the technology to demonstrate and showcase by kind of reports, by impact, examples that you can attract them. We want to ensure that small businesses, mid-sized businesses are included, and that's why we have target around, our KPI around an inclusive supplier ecosystem. If your suppliers are only one and continue to be large, we are missing the, missing a lot. We are, missing on creating opportunities for small suppliers and small businesses and diverse suppliers, and that's where the innovation comes into play. So it's not only, big initiatives, but we really need to focus on the inclusion, not only internally, but also in the supplier ecosystem. And all that is done based on data. And it has to be based on, a scientific approach, and the technology help us to do that. I just close by saying it is because of the technology, when the pandemic hits, everybody was able to continue working remotely. If we did not have the technology that we have today, which continued to evolve, we would have been in a very, very different situation. So I think, want to put more emphasis on technology, but also at the same time, be responsible about the use of technology.
I love that. And you started talking about scorecards and your KPIs and how important that is. And we talked about a little earlier too, on telling the story and the value there. I think it'd be great for us to maybe share how, what are some examples of what you're managing and tracking in some of those scorecards and KPIs in terms of your ESG measurement. So maybe Chaitra, if you want to get us started, and Colleen would love to also hear from you on what else is in your scorecard.
Sure, absolutely. So when I look at the Women in Cloud, right, when we established we need to create $1 billion in economic access, that's a great vision. Makes sense, but how do you break it down into something that's more tangible so you could measure? So some of the metrics that we do have, we focus a lot on the workforce development. We want to make sure that there are a number of women who are getting ready with cloud and AI. So we went and secured the cloud scholarship, and you can see a lot of other organizations have started to replicate that. So we are really creating the same kind of momentum with other communities. So that's a good way, because women do not have access to these technology, I would say education and tech. So we make that possible. The second thing that we also recognize that the ESG leaders are not accessible who are women, because you can talk about it, but they're not. So we were able to say, okay, let's put a metric on number of women who are actually becoming ESG ready leaders. So when the global CEOs are looking left and right, they have a list of those candidates and they have all the skills that they need to drive the ESG with technology narrative. The third one is the cloud marketplace adoption by the women founders. If you think about the cloud marketplaces there, but underneath is a co-sell strategy, we did not see any women there. So we said, how about we put in a dedicated strategy? And we said, we want to take a specific number and we get these number of women going through the accelerator and then get them to build is $1 million businesses in the enterprise ecosystem in partnership with global partners like Avanade and Accentures and Microsoft of the world. So bring all that together. And the last one is policy influencing. There are 6,000 policies right now that regulators are looking for. The women are not showing up. So that means we had to go through the readiness of women to get ready to understand how to advocate for policy. But to do that, we had to come up with a curriculum, give them access for them to talk about it. So those are the way we looked at it. Internally, we use technology for automation. And I always tell my team, if you cannot finish your work in 8 hours and go to bed and have 8 hours, that means we are not using technology really well. The technology should be driving better quality of life for each one of them. And so there are multiple things we look at a strategic level and also tactical level, which is productivity piece for the team.
And I'm happy to jump in here as well. Armoire sits at this intersection of technology and the fashion industry. And as many of you may know, the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry, second only to oil and gas. So there is a long way to go when it comes to great ESG initiatives and implementation in this industry. But I'll share an anecdote and something that I'm really proud of. You know, fashion is an industry of consumption. Every quarter, there are these masterminds in the industry who try to convince us, like, these are the trends that you need to buy. This is how you have to look good. Buy this and you will be confident. And our founder was sort of like, oh, there's so much consumption here. How can we take a step back and use technology to fundamentally upend this constant cycle of overconsumption? So instead of adhering to this like chief merchant strategy, like this, sage fashionista who's going to tell us all what to wear, we subscribe to crowdsourcing what people want to wear. So our members actually vote on the items that we buy quarter over quarter, and our 98% of items that are brought into our warehouse are worn by our members. That is in opposition, that 98% is in opposition to the 68% sell-through rate of traditional retailers. So even by just like taking some power back from those sage fashionistas, we've been able to minimize a ton of waste in the industry, especially for our company. So in addition to numbers like that, I really like to think about what comprises our inventory. 60% of what Armoire buys is called dead stock. So instead of commissioning net new orders from designers, we are finding styles that like already exist in the world and buying those, like giving new life to items that have already been produced. I think about decommissioning our styles either through recycling or donation. We work with a really great nonprofit called Dress for Success when we're retiring styles from our inventory. And then we think a lot about like, how do we continue the life cycle of slightly damaged items? So since our 2016 founding, we have repaired 17,000 garments to keep them in rotation. And I know not everyone is a great seamstress, but think about bringing those jeans to your local seamstress instead of throwing them out. It's a great way to continue the life of those garments. Yeah, Haba, I'll hand it over to you.
I'll just kind of like, share one initiative, one example that we are, like just announced a couple of weeks ago. So we announced in partnership with Prosperity Now, initiative to enable 1 million BIPOC entrepreneur. And, and this is what we've realized is that, like it will take anywhere between 200 to 250 years to reach wealth equality. So having BIPOC compared to their counterparts, white entrepreneur. And so this is one of the initiatives that we are focusing on and will continue to measure. And, like first year, our aim is to enable about 125,000 BIPOC women entrepreneur. And this, we'll use the technology to be able to, kind of help in streamlining the whole lending process with the CDFIs, because it is biased. It is very biased. That's where the technology can play a role here. And, if we look into, into the kind of the access to funds, only 3% or 5% people of color have access to these funds. If you, kind of streamlining back down to women, it would be less than 1%. So that's where the initiative comes into bear. So one area is around streamlining and help to streamline the funding process with the CDFIs. Second one is to create a marketplace. And we partner with Shiatra and all the members of Women in Cloud to drive that and encourage them to leverage and benefit from it. And the marketplace will allow them to, connect with their peers, where they do create partnerships, connect with funding agencies, as well as be ready and get the readiness to be part of the supplier ecosystem for large corporations. So get the training, the mentorship and support. So that's kind of like, we're not going to do it alone and we're not going to reinvent the wheel, but we're going to build on what is there. And we really want, together with our partners, to disrupt the status quo and be able to enable and empower more entrepreneurs from underserved communities to grow and be part of the economic engine that we are seeing there. And then the last bit is around innovation and inviting everybody. It's like a competition where entrepreneurs, like VCs, nonprofits would come and bring ideas to disrupt that status quo. This is an initiative that will feed in a number of things. Doing good to the community, like supporting leaders, and entrepreneurs to grow and access to funds and access to marketplace. At the same time, feed in the supplier ecosystem and ensure that we have, a diverse supplier ecosystem that will help us all. So this is one initiative that I want to share with everybody. We've got a lot, but I'm kind of mindful of the time. So I'll hand over to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much. You all have given us so many very actionable things that we can take to our businesses for ESG solutioning, tracking. And man, I am just so inspired to do a lot from this. So thank you all for the time. I'm going to hand it back to Patty, and I'm sure in the chat here we'll put some contact so we can all reach out with additional questions and certainly some fashion advice as well. So thank you all so much.